Greetings, everyone. As many of you know, my name is Troy Lamel Stovall. I humbly serve as the CEO of TEDCO. And today, this is not a TEDCO Talks. This is really about, I think, one of the most special things in my short time that I've been here at TEDCO, to be able to talk to two individuals who I admire greatly, who have had a chance to mentor and hold me up. And frankly, I call them friends. But before I introduce them, I got to say, this is about women. And that's what we're going to be talking about for the next few minutes, is about women. And I got to tell you a little bit about how much women have meant in my life. As I thought about this, I think about my grandmother. My grandmother, who frankly, folks, could not read or write. And I did not know she could not read or write till I was 16 or 17 years old. But I will sit here and tell you through my journey that I've had a chance to meet some of the brightest folks walking this planet. My grandmother is one of the smartest, the most innovative person that I have ever come to know. And I can say the same thing about my mother. My mother, she finished high school, didn't have much college, single mom, raised my sister and I, and yet her grit and determination has always defined me. And I tell the story of how I got a chance to go to nothing but Catholic schools from pre-kindergarten to 12th grade. And to this day, I don't know how my mom afforded that. And just that determination and grit has always defined me. So as I sit here and help us launch these women and Black women's programs that we're going to talk about here today, I tell you that to let you know how women meant for me. And so to be able to introduce Myra and Linda, who have been, frankly, the reason I am here at TEDCO. Myra, who was the former chair of the board, who brought me into TEDCO, and Linda Singer, who was my predecessor, who just opened her mind, her heart, and her knowledge to me during this journey, has been amazing. So with that, let me introduce Myra Norton of Arena Analytics, former chair of the board, and then also retired Major General Dr. Linda Singh of Kaleidoscope Effect. Thank you, ladies, for being with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Troy.
So let me start with you, Myra, if I may. So I may have been, I probably was a week into being the CEO, and I've never forgotten, one of the first questions officially was, well, when are we going to get the women's program finished? When are we going to finish it? So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about this women's program, but more importantly, what it meant to you and why you thought it was so important for TEDCO to have this women's program?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about why TEDCO, this has been on TEDCO's radar for a long time. But before I do that, for me personally, I grew up the daughter of two wonderful parents who came from high school sweethearts from a small town in Alabama. And my father was a minister. My mother was a teacher. I didn't see in my growing up, there were no role models of women leading companies, starting companies. To be doing what I'm doing today was not even on my radar. I couldn't even imagine it. And it's really, through the grace of God and a lot of blessings in my life that I've ended up doing this thing that I love so much, running, now my second startup. And so I have personally experienced the reality that when you don't know what's possible, it's very hard to find yourself there, right? And as I've been in the startup space now for a number of years, I look around and see very few women who are doing this work. And to your point, Troy, we're pretty creative, resourceful, gritty group. And so for me personally, this just has a lot of meaning because it's only through the people that have been brought into my life over the years that encouraged me on the days when I felt like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. What's the answer to this? I'm failing. I should just get out and go back to corporate America. And, it was the people that surrounded me and said, no, you can do this. And here, let me connect you to this person. And let me introduce you here to this potential client. It was that host of almost angels, if you will, that helped me stick to it and realize, success. And I I recognize that that's just not there for so many people. I'm really blessed that I happen to, stumble into networks of folks that were willing to help. And so for me, I wanted to see us do more here in the state of Maryland to really lift women up, to show women who maybe never thought about going into an entrepreneurial venture that you can do this. This is possible. And so personally, that's why it's really important to me. And then when I joined the board of TEDCO, even before I stepped in as chair, one of the first things that was shared with me was a market study that was done, I think it was in 2015, 2016, that really went out into the state of Maryland asking constituents all across the state, what basically trying to assess where are we missing the mark as TEDCO? Where are there pockets of the population that we're not reaching in a way that we need to reach? And out of that market study, there were really three groups that were identified: entrepreneurs of color, rural entrepreneurs in rural settings, and women entrepreneurs. And when I first joined the board, we stood up the rural business initiative. So we'd stood up programs to tackle that deficit and really start to support those entrepreneurs. We had stood up what started as the Minority Pre-Seed Fund, and it's now the Builder Fund. So we had started that work. But there was nothing that we hadn't gotten to the support of women entrepreneurs. And so to me and to the rest of the board. So again, this initiative kicked off before I stepped in as chair. The entire board said, okay, now it's time for us to go really put thought and time and attention into what are the right set of programs to surround women entrepreneurs in the state.
Got it. No. So Linda, Myra used the word lift, and I think it's interesting given that this women's program is called Lift to Lead with the number 2, right? Mm-hmm. And Linda, someone who's led, obviously been a leader both in the corporate world and with the military. This doesn't come alone, right? And so talk a little bit about how the whole process of building the Lift to Lead came together under your leadership.
Absolutely. Well, the key thing is we did meet with the team so that I could hear from Myra and really the overall ladies to say, okay, what is it that you all are seeing? What are you feeling? And then, what can I take away from that would allow me to kind of put some structure in and around a program that really doesn't exist today. And so we ended up doing a lot of research. In addition to what had already been done, is really looking at the research out there and what it's telling us that women entrepreneurs need. And then what do women leaders need? Because it's not just the entrepreneur aspect, it's also this leadership aspect. And so when I started thinking about it, I pulled together some additional folks from not just the TEDCO team, but from the Chamber of Commerce, University of Maryland. And we started going through and developing what has now become the Lift to Lead program, or the Women's Entrepreneurship Program. And, the thing that I found in pulling it together is that while Maryland has a lot of women businesses, they really are struggling. And when I say struggling, meaning they're not doing as well as their peers. Right. And so we really have to hone in and say, well, why is that? And some of the key things that while all entrepreneurs need some of these same components, it seems to be a very different experience for women. And then more importantly, it's even a bigger difference for Black women entrepreneurs. And so we started focusing in on what do we have to do to be able to help remove those typical barriers that women face. And so I really wanted to help the team create a program that I felt was different than any other program that we see in the state of Maryland, that gives them something for themselves. It gives them a view of the world in and around them, in the world that they're working in. And then it wraps up at the end and really gets them to think about, now what are they going to do differently walking out of this program, not just for themselves, but also for their teams. And so there's 3 components, and I kind of summarize those components into those areas. And, the very first thing that we start thinking about is that leadership, that communication, and how are they showing up? And that means that you really have to understand and know yourself and how you're showing up as an entrepreneur, and how does that affect your teams, right? So we dive into a lot of that. How does that affect your relationships? How does that affect your networking? And then hitting on the real world kind of perspectives. What's the world in which you operate? And if you are going to do business in state and local government, health, whatever it may be, we're bringing experts that will help them to see, here's how you can do things differently. Here's how you can work with us to be able to, I hate to say follow the money, but when you start talking even to legislators, when you see big changes or big bills or big funding mechanisms, well, how do you use that to say, I need to have a focus in my business that's going to drive towards getting dollars that will come down the road in this particular area? And then the last piece is they have to walk away from the program with a game plan.
Yep.
You can't just go through this program and say, oh, we're just here to build our network. You have to walk away with a game plan. Now, they will also walk away with a network of peers. And that can be challenging, because a lot of times we look at peers and we say, go talk to your peers. Well, your peers are also struggling. But the good thing is that we can struggle in that fishbowl all together, right? We don't have to be necessarily that one standout fish and say, well, it's just me. No, we can actually come together and start swimming upstream together to be able to affect change. And so that's what I'm, really wanted to be able to pull together in this program as we were going forward.
So Myra, we can stay on that all day, I'm sure. But Myra, what part of that you heard Linda talk about resonates with you in your journey? And for folks that don't know, Myra leads a data analytics firm, and she reminds me she's a mathematician by nature. She reminds me all the time. But what part of what Linda resonates with as you continue on your journey, the journey that you've already had to lead you to leading an arena?
That's a great question. And before I answer that question, I just have to say, how much gratitude I have for Linda, because she and I worked very closely together, and she really took the reins and put so much, because part of what happened as we and she really birthed this program as we brought together a task force of women entrepreneurs across the state, both inside TEDCO, outside TEDCO, really, and listening tours to sort of understand what the pain points are. And what became really clear is there are a lot of pain points. And so to be able to bring all of that input into a very focused program it's just been masterfully done. And so I'm so grateful to you, Linda. And I know every woman who participates in this program is going to be changed for the better. Mm-hmm. And so when I think about my own journey, everything you've just talked about, I'm in my head going, yes, amen, amen, amen. So, starting with getting to know myself, one of the foundational pieces of my ability to grow in leadership was getting really clear about who I am, what's important to me, all of the aspects of who I am, because I'm not just a CEO, I'm a mother and a wife and a daughter and a sister, and not shying away from that. And I think a lot of times I know earlier in my career, I felt like I had to pretend I wasn't those things. I was supposed to act like a man, or, like be. And so getting really comfortable with who you are and knowing who you are, that's been transformative for me, and not just in leading companies, but in my life in general. And then developing from that comes your leadership style, right? You can't have a leadership style that's not in alignment with who you are as a person. It won't work well. So this idea of get to know who you are, from that place, start to develop what are the leadership capabilities and skill sets that you need, and learning, where you're strong and where you maybe need to surround yourself with people that have strengths that you don't. So important, because you're not going to be good at everything. That's just not how it works. And then having a peer group, there's nothing, there's nothing better than being able to pick up the phone and call someone and say, I'm having a really bad day. And you can't say that when you're running a company. they're not very many. You can't turn, there's no like coworker to call, to turn to and say that to. So having that network, because what I found is, and I know this is exactly how you've architected this program, it's not even just the network of your peers, but each of us has our own network of experts. And so building this network is not just about having a network of peers that are in the same boat that you're in. It's access to all of their networks of experts, et cetera. And so it's really, that grows exponentially. So when you say, I'm trying to figure out sales comp plans, I don't know how to do that. Does anybody have someone that is really good at that? Oh yeah, guarantee you there's going to be 2 or 3 people that have had to, have a resource that they can point you to. So I think the pillars of this program really hit, all of the pieces that you need when you're trying to grow a business.
So what I love about what you just said and what I've learned about you and Linda, you didn't say this word, either of you, but it's your vulnerability, your willingness to show that vulnerability. And many times women are afraid to show that because men don't tend to. And so, but having that confidence to show that vulnerability, and you said it, Myra, to know that I have these various roles and I may not be doing my best. And you and I know when we talk, our first conversations are about our kids and about our families and what's going on with them. And yeah, then we get to our TEDCO business, but it's a genuineness about caring about that I'm just not the CEO of TEDCO and you're just not the chair of the board or former chair of the board. We are other people, and recognizing that and having that and allowing that to be part of the conversation, I think is what I'm hoping that women will also get out of this as well. And hearing that from you is what I'm hoping to get out of it. So, as we went down this journey, folks, and we, got our arms around this women's program and got the board to approve it, Linda and I were just looking at each other, and Linda already intimated a little bit. It became clear that when we looked at Black women, their challenges were just a little different. There were some things that we need to focus in on, and we tried to figure out, could we bake it into it and just kind of have this separate, and we went back and forth, and frankly, what we landed on was, and we started looking around the ecosystem and said, wait a minute, we've got 4 HBCUs, public HBCUs in the state of Maryland. What if we could get the 4 of them and get the best of them and get them together and build something that would be focused on Black women entrepreneurs? And that's what we did. Through Linda's leadership, through a lot of phone calls, through a lot of emails, we've got the 4 HBCUs, the presidents to agree to create what we're calling the Open Institute for Black Women Entrepreneur Excellence. And I'm gonna let Linda talk about it a little bit more, but that's what we've launched, and we're happy to announce we have a pilot that was announced about a week and a half ago from this taping that we're doing with Howard County. County Executive Ball, thank you very much for your leadership, and through the contribution of BG&E, we're able to do this pilot in Howard County here in Maryland. So, Linda, you want to tell folks about our Open Institute?
Absolutely. Now, folks are going to look at this and they're going to say, well, the structure of the program looks the same, but it's the conversation that we have within the program where it's going to be a huge difference. And so when I really started looking at it with the team and trying to say, well, what is it that's absolutely different? And what do we need to do to kind of up level, the Black women entrepreneurs? And I think the biggest thing is just realizing that how we have the conversations as Black women is different than how we would have the conversations if we were in a group just with all women. And you see different behaviors, you see different thinking come out, and it's not a bad thing, but I think there are other challenges and issues that we have to address there. And we want to be able to have a safe space to be able to have those conversations. And so when I really started looking at this and driving in, I started pulling research and then looking at it to say, well, what is the research telling me? And, where are the key differences? And what we are finding is that, while women entrepreneurs are kind of lagging behind their male peers, if you further break that out, Black women entrepreneurs are even further lagging. And when you look at the percentage of growth for startups, especially, and when you look at these businesses and the revenue that they're making, you're talking a significant difference. And so the key focus on this program is going to be raising the awareness and really helping them to not just, again, see themselves, but how do they see themselves operating in an environment that may not be readily accepting of them stepping into it. And so how do they step in and still not lose themselves? How do you step into a room with, whether you're with all white male peers, how do you step into that room and still have some identity for yourself, but be confident and comfortable to know that you can walk up to any one of them and have a conversation and not feel like you don't belong there.
I love it.
So when our Black women entrepreneurs go through this program, I want, and really all of our women, I want them to come out the other end. I want them to be able to walk up to the president of the United States and feel like they can have a conversation like he's your next door neighbor. And they can talk about business from top to bottom. They can talk about their life, but they're going to feel comfortable in that space, knowing that they deserve to be there. And so that's important for me. And when we were working with the HBCUs, I think that this is just unique within itself because there's no other program that I've seen where the HBCUs are working together to bring their power of not just their resources, but their network to leverage what we can do for Black women entrepreneurs. And so with TEDCO and the 4 HBCUs, it's what I'm calling the power of 5. Right. So we're going to take that power of 5 to uplift Black women entrepreneurs.
I love it. And for those that may not know our 4 HBCUs here in Maryland, it's Bowie State University, Coppin State University, Morgan State University, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Those are our 4 HBCUs that have been partnered with us to make this happen.
So and if people don't know the 4 HBCUs, they need to go out and do some research because that's an important part of our educational structure here in Maryland. Absolutely.
So as I close this out, I want to kind of time set folks. So we're taping this early March of 2022. So we just left, obviously, Black History Month. If you don't know, we're in Women's History Month. So there's an intentionality to the timing of this. And so this is for both Myra and Linda. So we're sitting here in the early stages of 2022. Yes, there's a huge geopolitical issue happening. Inflation is happening. We're still dealing with COVID in a degree, still dealing with inequities that exist. But let's, if we can, propel ourselves 5 years from now. So we're in 2027. We're 5 years. We've had some success with this program. Myra, what are you seeing? What's going to be your things that you're going to be saying, boy, you can point to that and say, here are 2 things that said, that was a success. I'm glad we went down this path.
Yeah. One, we're going to have a much larger percentage of our entrepreneurial ecosystem be women entrepreneurs and women leaders of entrepreneurial. So we're going to see that representation grow dramatically. We're going to see a greater percentage of the dollars, VC and other investment dollars, going to women entrepreneurs. And we're going to see success stories, the exits. We're going to see a greater percentage of those coming from women entrepreneurs. To me, that is what this is all about. It's more bringing more women into entrepreneurial ventures. And the idea here is not that everybody should be an entrepreneur. That's not what we're saying. But the 3 of us know we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of women across the state who want to be entrepreneurs, and so we need to make that possible. So it's representation, greater participation in the entrepreneurial ecosystem by women, more dollars, because that's all the support and the networks and all that are nothing if the money doesn't follow. So the money's got to be going to these women entrepreneurs, and we've got to be supporting them so that they're the big successes as well, right?
Exactly. So before Linda, just to give some numbers to folks, less than 2% of venture capital dollars last year went to Black women founders, less than 2%. And last year was one of the greatest years in venture capital history, and yet less than 2% of dollars went to Black women founders. So that has to fundamentally change. Linda?
Yes.
Yeah. And, when I'm thinking about what Myra just said, and we absolutely have to hit those targets. But the other thing that I would like to see, and I'm actually doing some calculations here, I know that's really bad, because I would like to see, I'm thinking, we'll run these programs. We'll run for women entrepreneurs and one for Black women entrepreneurs. And we will look at the timing. I am looking that 5-year time frame to see 250 women-owned businesses that are, they might have started out at a particular revenue number. And at that point, I want to see 2x at a minimum, 2x on their revenue at a minimum. That to me is realistic, but I would really like to see, 4x when you're thinking 5 years, that they're, quadrupling down on their growth. And that growth needs to be, I think, measured in terms of sales dollars and revenue, right? We need to be looking at that. I would also, like to see at the end of the 5 years where we have women-owned businesses that kind of come out of this that are landing on some of the small business list. And when I say the small business list, I'm talking high-performing businesses, right? Where they're getting awards and we're figuring out how to help them lift themselves up and tell that story. Because too often they don't tell the story and they leave it up to somebody else. And so they need to be telling the story and putting it out there. And so that's what I would, like to see, because by the time we get down that path, we would have touched 250 businesses.
I love it. And so to tie Myra and Linda's points together, so if you're getting a 2 to 4x multiple on your lift on your revenue, depending on your business, if you got, depending on your business, you might get a 3 to 10x multiple on the valuation side. Really what we should be talking about, ladies, is how do we create a unicorn? And for those that don't know, a unicorn is $1 billion valuation company. And so, in 5 years, can we get at least a $500 million or close to $1 billion unicorn woman enterprise that's in Maryland? That should be what we should be talking about. And that's what we should be, to me, that's what we should be talking about. Well, look, the two of you know how much you mean to me personally and professionally. I can't thank you for your support of this effort. Doesn't happen without the two of you. So thank you. And obviously the TEDCO board supporting us along the way. The TEDCO team, we call them the One TEDCO team. There's been a lot of folks that have been involved with this, so I can't thank them enough. And so can't wait to see what we look like 5 years from now. Myra, Linda, thank you for your time. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for your support of TEDCO. Again, this is Troy Lamel Stovall. Thank you all. Appreciate you listening.